So Patrick Mahomes today signed a 10-year extension worth at minimum $450 million, at maximum right around $520 million. Now, that's including the 2 years he has left, so it's a 12-year deal. It is until the year 2032. I'm not going to say 2032 because I don't feel like that gives it enough value. 2032. I will be almost 40 years old. I am nowhere near 40 years old right now.
I might be dead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to make it to 40. Don't get it twisted. But if we want to put this into perspective, I'm going to give you the contract numbers for guys 2 through 5 and the biggest contracts in NFL history. At number 2, you have Matt Ryan, 5 years, $150 million. At number 3, you have Khalil Mack, 6 years, $141 million. At number 4, Russell Wilson, 4 years, $140 million. And number 5, Jimmy Garoppolo, 5 years, $137.5 million. Patty Mahomes has tripled the previous largest contract ever signed by an NFL player. And that's if he gets the lowest amount of money he can get on this deal. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And it is the best contract any team maybe has ever signed any player to, because you now have 12 years of dominance. No matter who you put around him, they're at least going to be good enough. No matter who's around him, you could mix the Eagles receiving core with the Packers receiving core, sans Devontae Adams last year. Give it to Patrick Mahomes, and he's probably going for 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns, 6 picks, and taking his team to the AFC Championship game. He's that good. I know a lot of people don't want to buy in on guys who have done it for 2 years. And I think mostly everybody's bought in on Patty Mahomes, but maybe not as this transcendent, one of the greatest arm talents we've ever seen, one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. Yeah, I from talking to people every day, and I've talked about this on the show before, but I'm a bartender, and most of my job is talking sports with the people sitting at my bar. There's a large group of people who will not say that they see one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. What about Brady? What about Manning? What about this? And it's like, sure, I'm not downplaying those guys when I say that. But after 2 years, I can look you in the eye and comfortably say Patrick Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life. Does it? Of course it does. Does it help that he has Tyreek Hill? Of course it does. But guess what? If he was on the Chicago Bears for the last 2 years, he probably has 2 Super Bowl rings, and that's without Tyreek Hill or Andy Reid. He's that good, guys. If he asked for $600 million, they should have given him $600 million. He's essentially being paid a third of the cap. And I would pay him, and I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating. If he asked, I would give him half of the cap space on my team. If it's $120 million, I would give him $60 million a year. He's that good. And now, I mean, how many Super Bowls are they going to win in the next 12 years? What do you think the low side of that is? 2?
Yeah, low 2. I think reasonably 4.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden he's 33 years old with 5 Super Bowl rings. And who's Tom Brady? Like, it's just
gonna have like 30,000 yards passing.
He's just ridiculous. Who's, besides for obviously the guy who's going to make $500 million over the next 12 years, who do you think the biggest winner in this is?
Besides Patrick Mahomes?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's dating Patrick Mahomes right now?
Oh, that chick, the yelly chick?
I don't know. I certainly do not know. But there's going to be some sort of nice diamond necklace waiting.
I've got it down to 2 people. I think it's either Tyreek Hill or Andy Reid. Because now
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It could be Clyde Edwards-Helaire who's about to get, like, his whole career, he's going to have Patrick Mahomes for forever. Day 1. That's awesome.
Dynasty. Get ready for it. People love him now. 6 years from now, he's going to be looked at like Tom Brady. People, you're either going to love him or you're absolutely going to despise him. Because if there's one thing sports fans do, it's get sick of winners. Unless you're the San Antonio Spurs, for some reason, they get sick of you every time.
I think that people dislike Brady for different reasons than why people don't dislike the Spurs. I'd be really surprised if there was any. There hasn't, in my opinion, been any angle to dislike Patrick Mahomes outside of a purely racial angle.
Yeah, and you're right up to this point. But when he has 4 Super Bowl rings and he's knocked your team, and your team out of playoffs 4 out of the last 5 years, then everybody has reason to hate him. With success brings hate. Are you actually successful if you don't have haters?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a question for Twitter. I don't have the answer to that. It's like Plato said, are you successful if you don't have haters?
It is the question. It's the question of life, really, that is.
I want to say, like, I don't think that he gets a whole lot of bonus points for having Andy Reid as his coach. I don't think that affects him too much, or as much as people are going to say. I mean, Tom Brady had Bill Belichick, Drew Brees had Sean Payton,
No, you're right.
All the elite quarterbacks have great coaches. That's why they stay where they are. And honestly, up until this point, Andy Reid's kind of been a loser. Up until like the exact 6 months that he's been living.
Loser feels a little strong. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the worst time clock management coaches in the league. But other than that, he's almost a perfect head coach. He's just really bad in the last.
I think that's a new idea for people. I think.
I mean, he's 20 years into a successful NFL coaching career?
Like a pantheon, like S tier NFL coach. I don't think that that's been the case until he's won a Super Bowl. And I think that people are correct that that's the way it works. So, but he's been around for a long time and had great quarterbacks and not won Super Bowls. So,
yeah. But he's also created a lot of those great quarterbacks, in my opinion. I mean, don't forget what he did with Alex Smith. He turned that guy into a really damn good quarterback.
Yeah, but I think Alex Smith was a pretty decent quarterback through most of his career. I mean, a little one-dimensional, but certainly a good NFL quarterback. He
was decent, and then he got with Andy Reid, and that offense became a legitimate offense. And it was strange. It was really strange at first because I remember that first year, it was something like he only had 2 touchdown passes to wide receivers the whole year. But he also had like 3,800 yards and a bunch of touchdowns and not a whole ton of interceptions. But I think you're giving a little too little credit to Andy Reid because he is the ultimate quarterback coach.
He's just like such a parody of a football coach. He's like Matt Patricia. He's just comical in that. Of course, that guy's a football coach.
He literally looks like Big Cat's Coach Doug's.
Yeah.
He looks the exact same. You want to get to questions?
Oh, good. I thought you were going to ask me questions about Doug's, and I was going to have to very politely inform you I don't give a shit about Doug.
I don't either. I think it's entertaining, but I haven't watched any of it.
Yeah. I mean, we're all just trying to fill the void,
Yes, exactly. Dude, he had one of the highest watched Twitch streams ever.
No, I know. He's
good. He's good at his job.
He is good at his job. And I wish he would do it somewhere else, but I know that he is like a partnership now in Barstool. He's making big owner bucks.
What would Spotify pay him? I mean, a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. Yes, I agree. Spotify would do what they did with Joe Rogan and Bill Simmons and just open the checkbook and say, what does it cost?
Yes. So, all right.
How do you feel about the fact that we're going to see a lot of Barstool in Detroit?
Why? Because Greektown?
Don't know. Yeah, the company that bought Barstool, like the private equity company or whatever that got its hooks into Barstool, owns Greektown. It's that same company. And so because of that, there's already been, Detroit's embraced sports books. They're one of the first cities to add a sports book here in the city. Since the legalization of gambling at whatever
Tigers
level.
Are doing it in the stadium right now.
Yeah. That's what I read. Yeah, they're putting it in the stadium. I think that we're going to see a lot of that. See a lot of them. How do you feel about that?
I love it. Anytime there's more sports gambling, I'm there. Give me a box that I can look at odds and bet on sports, and I'm there. It's always been to me. And just to get a tiny bit political here, I guess, it's always been to me that as an adult person, if you earn your money, you should be able to spend it on what you want to spend it on. And whether you're making a stupid decision and gambling your money away, that is your stupid decision to make. And we've all done it. I think we've all lost a little bit too much money gambling. But That's okay. I learned from it. Most people probably learn from it. Don't make a law that says you can't gamble because it's bad for you. That's just silly to me. Now, where it could get tricky is when you have somebody who's 11 beers deep, who put $250 on Miguel Cabrera to get a hit, and then Cabrera steps up for his fourth time with 2 strikeouts and a ground out and strikes out for the third time. And then all of a sudden, that dude who is 11 beers deep gets like a little bit violent. And I do think at some point we'll see that. I just hope we don't see it too often.
Theoretically, in a free society, you need a reason to make a law, not to not make a law. So, I mean, I guess logistically, or what's the word? Ideologically, I'm with you that sports gambling probably could be legal. But I also agree with you that there's a weird murky gray area involving children or people who are easily coerced because of whatever reason. I don't know. I don't have the answer to sports gambling, man. I don't have the answer for you.
I got a scenario for you. So what I'm guessing it'll be a little screen set up at like the top of your section that you can go look at odds and bet. And you just put your credit card in and boom, there you go. So there's a prop bet. Will somebody streak on the field? Plus 900 for yes. What do? You have $1,000 in your pocket. What do? Do you spend $1,000, hand your friend your ticket, and go run onto the field?
There's no way they would do that.
But what if it's just like Bovada? It's just like a Bovada machine that the Tigers get an X amount of percentage of, because then they'll have it.
I just don't think that they would ever put. Give me a different example, because I just think that one's like there's no way they would never do it.
Right. You're probably right. So I don't think
give me another example of what you mean. I just think that's like
no. It was just a specific question, okay. Just like a wild question, because like a moral dilemma. Okay, let's just say they did have it for fun. Let's have this conversation. Okay,
so you have to basically like blow into it to get it to work, is what you're saying.
You have $1,000 in your pocket. Okay, it's plus 900. You see it on the screen. You make not $8,000 profit, $9,000 total if you get this right. Do you print that ticket, hand it to your friend, and run onto the field?
No, because the hospital bills when they beat the shit out of you out back will be more than the $8,000 that
you're right. Those are stadium cops, man. They're like 90.
They don't give a shit. They have no higher authority. They're just there to beat the crap out of streakers. There's bored 45-year-old guys. I mean, I guess some cops are too.
They can't catch me. And that's all right. I'm not getting into streaking on the field because I have a lot of issues with how people go about it, and it just really bugs me. Just like go straight across the field, run into the stands, and leave the stadium. You'll probably make it. There's
no way that you could get out of the stadium without one of the 20 cops with tasers getting you. It's hard. You can't be inconspicuously naked. You can't Sly Cooper your way.
Okay, so we'll just say running onto the field. We'll just say you can be clothed, just running onto the field. If I'm at Comerica Park, right? This is Fan2Fan Detroit. I think most of you listening know what Comerica Park looks like. And I start on the first baseline, right above the dugout. Okay, so I run on top of the dugout and I leap right over and I land on the field. All of a sudden I'm there. I'm doing one of these, okay? Trying to figure out where the cops are. I take off. I run by Matt Boyd. Boom, high five. Okay? I keep going, zigzagging between the shortstop and the third baseman. They're not too concerned about me. They just want to play. They're like, this loser. Keep running. All of a sudden, first cop's coming from the first base dugout. Okay, I see him, so I just lean a little bit right. I just start going a little bit right, and all of a sudden, I'm in left center field. Okay, so we got Jacoby Jones in center. We got somebody else in left. Neither of them care about me. The only place they can get me from left field is those two dugout doors, right? So that's why I'm coming in center. They're coming here. I'm going right through the middle. Then what I'm doing, as soon as I get to that wall, I'm diving on top. It's only like a 6-foot wall. I can make it up there. Dive on top, land on top of the bullpen. Okay? And then what you're probably looking at, because none of the other cops in the stadium know what's going on, you're probably looking at there's like 6 rows up there and left. 2 of those rows probably have cops. The stadium's like 13% full. So if I got to zigzag and jump over chairs, I'm good. And then once you get above there, once you get past those 2 cops, none of the rest of the cops have any idea what's going on. So if you lost them, you just go to a nice little speed walk, right? Nice little power walk. You got whatever you need. You got your beer still in your hand. Just you're going, pumping. And then you finally get out the door and you just take off. You're good.
I mean, that's certainly a lot of chaos. I tell you what I would do. I would hang out on the field, and when they came for me, I would draw my katana, and I would use that to ward off several security guards at once, deflecting their bullets at me when they fire them.
I forgot about my katana. Sorry. So,
that's a rookie mistake. It's a rookie mistake to forget that you sheathed your katana in a safe place for just this scenario.
And I'm only going to do this one quickly, but if you went right field instead of left field, as soon as you get over the wall, there's a tunnel that leads straight out the stadium. That's the move.
Ooh. This is gonna be premeditated. You're gonna have
anybody watching the show, if you wanna offer me $15,000 to pull this off, only if I pull it off, let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Violate YouTube service agreements for like soliciting, maybe?
Not enough.
Okay.
So
you want to do some over-unders?
Yeah, I guess so. All right. Well, as we've said before, the NFL season is about 8 weeks away from kickoff, maybe a little bit less at this point. I haven't done the exact math. But I think we're finally getting ready for a little bit of fantasy football talk and a little bit of standings talk and who's going to do what, who's going to go where. And I think the perfect place to start with that is over-unders. Now, this isn't something that we do super quick, so we're doing the NFC this week. You want to see the AFC, make sure you come back. Same spot next week, either here, Apple iTunes Podcast. Look for us on Twitter at Fan2Fan Detroit, and you will find it. AFC will be next week. But as you know, a Detroit podcast, and I know most of you watching are Lions fans, we are going to start with the NFC. We're just going to jump right into it. We did this for basketball.
Real quick, I want to say that what I'm going to be using, I don't know if you're going to be using the same thing, but the numbers are pretty close. I'm going to be using just like a SportsCenter article, on our like chalk, whatever they call it, sportscenter.com or ESPN.com/chalk, where they do their gambling stuff, where they have over-unders for all 32 teams. It's as of April 16th, but it's just easier for my eyeballs.
Okay, well then we'll go off yours for the whole thing because mine's like just Vegas.
The numbers are the same. I just wanted to. The numbers are the same. I just wanted to. Why? Do you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
Why did that happen?
I don't know. What are you doing?
What words did I say?
What are you doing on your computer there, bud?
Listening to classical music, man.
Sounds like an advertisement. You know what I've been running into a lot lately? Weird phone game advertisements, like uncomfortably weird.
Like sexual? Or like...
So there's sexual, or there's one this girl at work showed me today where this little cartoon chick is holding a pregnancy test and she hugs it.
Stop.
And she hugs it and she's so happy that she tested positive for her pregnancy and that she tells what appears to be her husband. But
hey, Google, stop.
She tells what appears to be her husband, "Ooh, I'm pregnant." So this lady at my work downloaded the game. And what the game turned out to be was a gardening game. And the husband that you thought got you pregnant was your next door neighbor. And he had no romantic relationship with you at all. You haven't run into any of those recently?
No.
Well, you don't play enough shitty phone games.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, advertising is native or whatever now, but I thought you were going to talk about those games where it's like your avatar and then like a pool of lava and then a pile of gold and then 3 keys in between, and you must open the keys a certain way so as to reach the gold or you burn alive. I see a lot of those.
I play those when I see them. I'm not even
maybe you should stop watching so much hentai.
only on my iPhone games, okay? It's just it sneaks up every once in a while. All right, let's start with the NFC
you want to
East.
Do some over-unders?
Yeah, at some point. Let's start with the NFC East. I want to go off your numbers though, so you kind of lead us here.
You have they're in your inbox or whatever. You have them.
Which inbox?
The Twitter DM that if it ever leaks will ruin yours and my life, probably mine more.
Oh no, I think you're lying to me. I don't have anything here. How long ago did you say? Aha, I found it.
Okay. So let's start with the NFC East. The NFC East is what we'll do first. We'll do the North at the end as a little what do they call it? There's like a word, like it's not foreshadowing. Little treat. Little cupcake. We're gonna do the Lions.
Little treat for you at the end.
This is like the most off the rails episode we've ever done.
Good. I think we needed one.
This late at night. I've been trying to fix my sleep schedule for my job, so like it's actually like an hour away from my bedtime. No joke. So I'm like a little silly. I know. It's taken me 3 or 4 days to get here, and it's still like a shitload of work. So let's do some over unders.
Yes, please.
The Cowboys of Dallas, the Jerry Joneses, their over under is listed at 9.5. I think we're both going to agree on this one. I'm going over.
I am not going to agree with that at all. I think they'll come close. I think it'll be 8 or 9. But you lost Travis Frederick. You lost Byron Jones. You lost Robert Quinn. And sure, you added Gerald McCoy. And you added CeeDee Lamb. And you added Trayvon Diggs to kind of make up for those losses. But it's going to take a couple weeks for them to fit into their spot. And they're just not as good of players. You lost possibly one of the best O-linemen in the league, possibly the best corner in the league, and one of the best D linemen in the league. And you replaced it with slightly washed up Gerald McCoy and then 2 rookies. So that's going to take a little while. On top of that, you now have overpaid Amari Cooper, overpaid Ezekiel Elliott. And not that they're not really good and some of the best at their position, but you can't pay both. You don't want to pay really either a wide receiver or a running back that much money, and you sure as hell cannot pay both. So I think what that'll cause is like a little bit of friction with Dak, being that he didn't get his money, and now he sees the billion-dollar contract Patrick Mahomes just got. And I just think it'll take them a couple weeks to really get it going. And if they have one injury out of their core 3 on offense, the season's done. So I'm going to say they win 9 games, and I am going to go under.
I like 10 games for the over. I think they're going to score like 30 points a game. I just think they're going to be – their roster, it's a real stars and scrubs roster. That's for sure.
Well, that receiving core is nasty.
I think Dak's going to be so pissed. I mean, Dak's getting some money this year. He got franchised, right? So it's going to be like $31.5 million. You know, I only feel so bad for quarterbacks when that happens. I feel a little bad.
No, I get it, but it's football. You know, you want your extended deal. The franchise tag is kind of a scam as it is.
It just dawned on me that Patrick Mahomes has like the GDP of a small European country.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. So you're over, I'm under. And by the way, for everybody watching, we did this with basketball at the start of the year. I haven't even told you this yet. A couple days ago, I went back and like did the math for all of them. Yeah. I did the math for all of them to like if they played a full season at their current pace, and you beat me by 2 teams.
Oh, I did. Fuck you.
Yeah,
how did we do poorly though? I think
we kicked ass.
Oh, cool.
Ass. Yeah, like
right. We know what we're
like 67% for you and like a little bit under that for me. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice. You know what I was wrong about though was the Spurs.
Yeah. Guess what I was right about?
The Spurs.
It only took 4 years.
You want to do some over unders?
Yeah, let's do some over unders.
Next in the division, Philly, 9.5. 9.5 for Philly. I have the over for Philly as well, but I don't love it. But I have the over.
So there is really just one question here, right? And it's, can Carson Wentz play a full season? I know you added Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts isn't winning you 10 games if he was to play. So can Carson Wentz make it through a full season? If yes, then I would say over. But I don't have that faith in him at all. So I'm going to go under. Not to mention the fact they really haven't added any wide receiver help. And they had the option to in the draft. They really could have done it. This was one of the deepest wide receiver drafts ever. They could have put together a good package for Nuke Hopkins. I mean, the Cardinals gave up nothing for Nuke Hopkins. You're telling me that the Eagles couldn't have beat that?
I don't think that the Eagles had a chance to offer for that. Those deals like that, I always assume are the Texans aren't saying that he's for sale. The Texans have a player they want, and they went and got him.
Okay, that's fair. Now, the one thing they really have going for them is that pass defense, which ranked 22nd in the league last year, added Darius Slay, one of the best
Yeah.
cornerbacks in the league. So again, if Carson
I
Wentz
would
stay healthy,
describe
I would
Darius
go over.
Slay as not elite.
Shut up, Matt Patricia. So I'm going to go under, but again, it's just because of a lack of faith with Carson Wentz. Not in his ability, but in his health. We're going on 3 straight years where he can't finish the season. It seems like every time he gets into a game, his shoulder is getting slammed into the ground. And with quarterbacks, they can't be hit as it is. So if he's getting hurt this often without really being able to get hit, I don't know if he's going to make it 16 games. So I am going to go under.
I like every year. I feel like the Eagles halfway through the season make a really good trade that makes their roster better. So as it's compiled now, it's probably an 8 or 9 win roster. But I don't think that they're done yet. I think that they could still end up with Jadeveon Clowney. I think they could still end up with any of the other higher name, Everson Griffin, and all the other free agents that are out there. But as it's comprised now, I think it's a 9-win team, and I'm counting on the fact that the Eagles have a very good kind of front office situation that will propel them to 10 wins.
Okay.
So if you're going with the over, I think you're banking on them not being done. So, like I said, not confident, not my favorite. The Giants for 5.5.
Over all day.
Really?
Yes.
Under.
Year 2 of Daniel Jones, right? Daniel Jones at least showed a little bit, at least showed that you can think of him as maybe possibly one day being a franchise quarterback. I don't think any of us think as lowly of him as we did when he got drafted, which was what the hell are these guys doing? He really looked good. He really looked like a young Eli last year. And I know, once again, that's the easy comparison to make, but he looked like the young Eli. On top of that, they had one of the best first 2 rounds of this NFL draft out of anybody. They added a stud offensive tackle in Andrew Thomas, and they added Xavier McKinney to really hopefully lock up that safety position with Jabril Peppers. So I'm going to go over. I think they could come close to 7 if Saquon Barkley just goes absolutely bananas, which is what I am fully 100% expecting him to do. It's year 3. It's time for him to turn into, no debate, the best running back in the league. I mean, the guy had 1,300 all-purpose yards last year in 13 games. He's just an absolute monster. So I'm going to say at least 6, but as many as 8 for the Giants. They'll be kind of a surprise team this year.
I mean, you've swayed me a little bit. I'm not a Daniel Jones believer. I thought he had like 2 good games and some really bad ones mixed in between those. Had a couple really nice plays. Really seems, I guess the Eli Manning thing makes sense because he's kind of got that like kind of clutch X factor thing going for him. But I just don't see the talent around him being there. The skill position players on their team haven't always been the healthiest. Saquon Barkley's great, but I think as we've seen time and time again, a run dominant, like bell cow backed situation like that has a really hard ceiling on it when your quarterback isn't that good. They'll put 9 guys in the box. Who's he throwing to? I just don't quite see it. I don't really believe in Gettleman either as a coach. I don't trust that front office. There's too many question marks for me to want to bet the over on this.
Okay. So we've disagreed on every team so far.
Which is surprising. I kind of thought we'd be – usually we're pretty close. Usually we're pretty close to each other.
Yep.
The Washington team that plays football in Washington, D.C., their listed over-under is 4.5, and I am going under purely out of spite.
Under all day. They're going to be the worst. They're going to be the worst team in football. Yeah. Dwayne Haskins is their quarterback. Under.
Yeah. Next. That's my Tony Kornheiser. Next. We're done with that division.
Yes.
So we're going to do the NFC South.
I'm there.
We're going to do the NFC South.
I do.
Okay. The Saints at 10.5.
Under.
Oh, I thought we were going to disagree, but I agree.
Under. It's just 10.5 feels like a lot for a team with an old quarterback. Honestly, I don't care who it is. I'm not going to feel super confident betting over 10.5 ever.
Yeah.
we've seen, as you've talked about on the show before, and you've stood by this for the entirety of how long I've known you, that Drew Brees is a first half quarterback and not a first half of game, first half of the season. And
Yeah.
he slowly falls down further and further. Now, their one hope is that they're in a division with two teams that could both, in my opinion, win less than 6 games. So they should sweep those two matchups, but still, then they still got to go 6-2 if they lose both to the Bucks. They got to go 6-2 outside of their division, or if they split the Bucks 7-3, or 7 and whatever. So I'm gonna go under. I just don't. I think this might be the year we finally see the Saints dynasty. They still might make the playoffs, but we're really gonna see the downward arc of this dynasty, or not dynasty, but very successful franchise for a very long time. We're really gonna see the train kind of sort to come off the tracks, and the downward slope is gonna get a little steep.
I don't think it's an insult at this point. Drew Brees and Sean Payton have been doing insane things for like a decade, maybe longer now. So 15 years. So, but I agree that the talent just isn't there. I feel like for 11 wins, especially on the defensive end, it's just tough. It's just tough to be that good for that long without eventually winning. Like if they win 10 games, if they go 10-6, I think we would both go, damn, good job. Great season.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is. So,
and that's the thing. I don't expect the Saints to win 6 games this year. They could definitely win 10, and they could. I wouldn't be super shocked if they won 11. I just, as far as betting goes, I'm not going to put the money on a team going 11-5 that kind of has been doing the same thing for a very long time, and their quarterback's older. He's a little bit less healthy, and they haven't added a ton of talent on offense. So,
yeah, they have the same talent that they've had. And I think that they're kind of approaching the ceiling with that specific group of talent. Maybe Taysom Hill has more, but I mean, I think the secret is out on Taysom Hill that he's like 28 years old and he's never really been that great. So
yeah,
he's a gadget player. He's like for the Lions and Pats.
If they want to win 11 games next year, Alvin Kamara has to compete for the MVP.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So who we got next?
The Panthers. I think the next. I'm going under on the Panthers. 5.5.
Man, you are just wrong on me today. I'm going over with the Panthers.
What?
I really just think Christian McCaffrey wins you 3 games, and then you find another 3 on an NFL schedule. This team isn't good. This team isn't great. But I think they're going to win 6 games on the dot, and you're going to have Christian McCaffrey to thank for that. A little bit of a breath of fresh air with this franchise. You got Matt Rule. You're obviously new quarterback, a worse quarterback, but you're kind of getting into a new era of Panthers football, and I think Christian McCaffrey is going to show up just as much, if not more, as how he did last year.
I think that they're the team most likely to send their best corner to a playoff team for a 3rd-round pick. If you're the Panthers, it's a reload year. You're changing everything. You're changing the culture of your team. You're changing the way that the NFL perceives your team, the image of your team, the players in your team. All of it's brand new. So I don't think that there's any shame in going 5-11 or 4-12 this year. I really don't. You can lock up potentially a franchise QB next year with the number 1 pick in Trevor Lawrence, who I think you and I both agree is a sure thing, right? I mean, that's
as close as it gets.
Sure thing,
as close as
it gets. I mean, he's proved it every day since he was a freshman in college. So, it's like the Dolphins last year. It's not bleak. It's just not. They're just not good today, right now. So I think they win 5 games. I don't think they care, and I think next year the Panthers could win very easily 8 games. And I think that we're best to evaluate them next year.
Okay, that's fair. You swayed me quite a bit there, but. It's just I'm riding the CMC Christian McCaffrey bandwagon until the wheels fall off.
CMC music machine? Yes. Falcons, 7.5.
I'm having a real hard time with this team. Okay.
Under.
I know they lost Devontae Freeman, and they lost Desmond Trufant, and they lost Vic Beasley, but they also added Todd Gurley, and they added Hayden Hurst, and they added Dante Fowler. So I think they can be good, and I think 7 or 8 wins is probably right around where they'll end up. But I will never believe in $150 million Matt Ryan or the the roster you're able to construct around $150 million Matt Ryan enough to pick the over. So I'm going to go the under. Yeah, he had 2 years where I really believed in the guy. I'm going to go under, but I think it'll be 6 or 7 wins.
The core of that team is past its prime, and I mean that on every sense of every level. For that team.
I mean, what's your best case scenario with Todd Gurley? He's not reaching what he was doing 2 years ago. You can hopefully, best case scenario is what, 75% of that probably?
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, catches 50 balls, runs. I don't know. I don't even know how many carries you can give him at this point. Is it 200 carries? Is that how many carries he gets in the season now?
160, 10 a game.
Yeah. So
maybe 200 touches. So
and actually, because I think we might do some fantasy stuff next week or the week after, pretty shortly here. I actually don't hate Todd Gurley for fantasy. I think he might get some points, and I think he's a pretty decent value. But if we're talking real life football winning games, I don't see any way that all of a sudden Matt Ryan comes back and is better than he was 3 years ago. I just don't see it. Same thing with Julio Jones. They're just the cleansing fire is coming for the Falcons, and perhaps they will be reborn as phoenixes. But the cleansing fire is coming. Thank you.
So we're both under on the Falcons.
Is that the first one we've agreed on?
The Saints and Falcons we've agreed on. So what do we got in the left? The polarizing Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh yeah, oops, I forgot we didn't do those. Their over under is set at 9, and I want the over. Yeah, I want the over for sure.
How many years in a row? How many years in a row are we going to have to hear national media and local media talk about how old Tom Brady is? Guess what, guys? Tom Brady's been old for a decade. He's been old for a decade, and he's gotten no worse. Sure, he kind of sucked last season. Who the hell was he throwing to? Nobody. Who the hell is he throwing to this year? Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, okay? And I just saw a video of Rob Gronkowski today. Dude looks in better shape than he ever was in during his NFL career. Not to mention, he probably feels like $1 million he didn't spend last year getting his ass beat on Sunday. Probably feels great. This offense is going to be the second, either the best or the second best offense in football. And not to mention, everybody, they might add Antonio Brown. Over. They're going to win 12 games.
The thing about Antonio Brown, and I think I've mentioned it before. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show, but Antonio Brown will have to pay a price for his shenanigans in the form of, I'm sure, a 6 to 8 game suspension. So adding Antonio Brown is gonna be a later season move.
Good.
If they do it. And I don't know like what the deal is with like the front office, what their belief in Tom Brady is, but I don't think that Antonio Brown would be the first guy on my call list if I was looking to add another receiver. But
no, and it's looking more and more like he's going to end up going to Seattle. But number 2, I think, would probably be Tampa. So
I think that there's even better tight ends on that roster besides Gronkowski. I mean, they're just deep. They're deep on offense. That running game's solid. Yeah. They drafted a rookie running back, and it was good before. The defense will be fine. They'll probably score a shitload of points. Brady is a wizard, Are you gonna argue against?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not.
This team was competing. This team was competing last year with 30 interception throwing Jameis Winston, and not Rob Gronkowski. And now they get the greatest quarterback to ever live. Put him under center. Add the greatest tight end to ever live. Sure, he's out of his prime. He's not going to catch. He's not going to go for 1,000 yards. But when you need a big catch from Rob Gronkowski, he's going to get you a big catch. He's still the most intimidating player on the football field at all times.
I think Tony Gonzalez is the greatest tight end of all time, but
he's got the most longevity. But prime Tony Gonzalez is nowhere near prime Rob Gronkowski.
We've had enough distractions without me sitting here and talking about Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez for 10 minutes. Well, that's the end of that division.
The West.
We're moving to the West. So 49ers, 10.5. I'm going
first.
I'm going under, and It's not that I don't think that it's a good team. It's not that I think that they're worse than last year. It's that far better teams than them have succumbed to the Super Bowl hangover. And until I see a team like that that bursts through that ceiling, I mean, it's just something I'm going to believe in until I'm proved otherwise. That Rams team was better than that 49ers team, and they won like 7 or 8 games, and they were a mess. I think that the NFL is going to catch up to that team this year.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go under 2. Reason number 1 being the same reason you said. Super Bowl hangovers are real. Okay, yeah. They're just real. You get into training camp the next year, and you're just not working as hard because you think you're the team that won 14 games or whatever. Also, this team went from 3 wins the year before to a Super Bowl team. Everything went perfect. Yeah. Everything. And that's probably not going to happen again. Do I think they're the best team in this division? Yeah. Do I think they'll win the most games in this division? Probably not. Ooh. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? Yeah, I do. But I am going to go under. I think they win 9 or 10 games. They'll make the playoffs. They'll be ready to go come playoff time. But Jimmy G isn't a franchise, or he is a franchise quarterback, but he's not a top 10 quarterback in the league. And we're going to see if that defense can kind of make up for that again, or if it'll hurt them a little bit more this year. And I think it'll hurt them a little bit more, but like I said, to the tune of 9 or 10 wins. Nothing less, nothing more. 9 or 10. I'm going under, but just barely.
I don't think that they're going to be the best team in their division this year. I think they're going to be the second, maybe the third best team in their division this year. I think that they're just going to regress pretty hard. When
you say maybe the third, who do you think the top 2 will be? Because I have a bad feeling about who number 2 would be for you.
No, it's not. Well, shoot, I mean, this is maybe the most competitive division in football. I mean, it's certainly one of them. This division, I think, is stacked this year. Let's do what I think the best team in the division is going to be. And it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams, who have an over-under of 8.5, and for whom I think beating that number is a lock. That is, in my opinion, the easiest one that we've done so far. The Rams are going to win 10 or 11 games this year. Here they come. They're back.
Why?
Because they're a more talented team than they showed last year. That's just a fact. They got hashtag Super Bowl hangover, and it's irrational. The Super Bowl hangover is an irrational ephemera that exists outside the normal laws of physics. And so I think that they're going to get a nice little bounce back from elite coaching and some awesome skill players. And it's just going to be better this year.
I'm going to say under.
Okay.
I don't see the skill position players on offense as elite anymore. You've lost Todd Gurley. Brandon Cooks isn't what he was. Robert Woods is pretty average outside of 3 weeks every year. And if we're keeping it a whole buck, as the kids like to say, Sean McVay has had 1 great year of coaching. 1 great year of coaching.
Pretty great year of coaching.
It was a pretty great year. Also, that team had a shit ton of talent from top to bottom. And that talent is slowly kind of fallen off. Not a huge way, but I think this is an 8-8 football team. Jared Goff is the leader of the free world with the Rams, and Jared Goff is not that good.
Jared Goff's totally just above the Andy Dalton line for sure. No question. But I've become a believer of the church of you can coach a mediocre quarterback to the Super Bowl.
If you have an elite defense, and you don't have an elite
defense. With your assessment of some of their skill position players, their receivers are still awesome. I think Robert Woods I think that you're not giving him enough credit. I think Cooper Kupp is the best slot receiver in the league. Their running backs are going to be better than they were last year.
What are they running out at running back right now? It's slipping my
mind. They drafted somebody. They drafted a running back in the 3rd round, 2nd round. And then they are still trotting out the same 2 other guys, but one of them was rookie the year before. So
Robert Woods to me,
not a very compelling argument I just made right there. I know.
Robert Woods to me is Amari Cooper on the Raiders, right? Where you knew it was there, and he'll end the season with some really nice numbers. But it all comes from 3 games of 175 yards through the air. And then the rest of the season, he's just the whole time. And then as far as Cooper Kupp, he was the best slot receiver once again for 8 games last year. He was amazing. And then he went back to a really, really good slot receiver. But I don't know if he's the best slot receiver in the league.
I think he's the best slot receiver in the league. They're going to be trotting out Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, and Cam Akers is who they drafted. Cam
All right.
Akers is
If they hit on Cam Akers, I would be if week 3 comes along and Cam Akers looks like a legit NFL running back, you could talk me into flipping to the over. But for now, I see an 8-8 team.
They've kind of got like what the Lions have going on right now, where they have like one of every kind of running back for the situations. Darrell Henderson's like a patch catching back. And then Malcolm Brown's kind of, I think, like more of a goal line guy. Yeah, 69 rushing attempts, 255, and 5 touchdowns. That's, it's pretty good. So it's not bad.
Now, let's go to the team that I think is going to be the best team in the division, and it is because of one person, and that is the Seattle Seahawks, who have taken a couple years off of being absolutely dominant, and I feel like they're ready to get back into it. Their over-under is at 9.5. I'm going over. I think they win 10, 11 games. I think Russell Wilson reminds everybody that he's might be a top 3 quarterback in the world right now, and for the last 5 years. I love the Seahawks this year. I absolutely love it.
Tough year. It's going to be weird for the Seahawks this year. This will be
make or break, right? Because if it doesn't work, you have to blow it up.
I thought that the Seahawks were going to kind of do their one last ride into the sunset last year, and I was wrong. I mean, they were pretty good. I mean, they lost to the 49ers by literally an inch, on a 1 yard goal line play. But I just don't see it anymore. I'm hopping off now is what I'm saying. I've ridden on the bandwagon for the last couple of years, kind of waiting to see if they're going to give me one more, but I'm going to take a step back this year and reassess. So I'm going to take the under. I'm not super confident about it. I think 10 games is about right, but you could talk me into 9 games. They still can't protect Russell Wilson. Well, the core of their problems haven't been solved.
That's where I think everybody's missing the point, though, right? This offseason, they fixed that problem. They signed 3 starting guards and Greg Olsen, who's not the Greg Olsen of old, but he can still block a little bit. Starting guard and 2 starting tackles.
He's not going to play, though, because they've got Gesicki or whatever. That guy who was not Gesicki.
They run a lot of 2 tight end sets. It's a completely revamped offensive line. And I think that has been the biggest problem going on 5 years now for the Seahawks. And if Russell Wilson has any amount of time to move his feet and get into the spot he needs to, he might be the best quarterback in football outside of Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to say over the Seahawks are on my Super Bowl radar.
They were on mine last year, and I was wrong. And I don't think their odds are any better this year.
I was
not Gesicki. He's in the Dolphins. I'm thinking of Will Dissly is who I was thinking of.
Whatever. I mean, Olsen at worst will split a little bit of PT with that guy.
Sneaky good fancy tight end last year. Could still be good this year if Olsen goes down.
Yeah. I'm not going to bet on the Seahawks this year, though. I'm not going to make a bet on this. I put a lot of money on them last year in the playoffs, and they were like plus 3,000. So yeah. I'm gonna stay a little bit further away. Who do we got left?
I just don't see a reason why this year, as opposed to any other year, with the Seahawks. So
okay, now this is the team I've probably been most interested to hear from you about all night, and that is the 7.5 set over under Arizona Cardinals.
That 7.5 is a pretty brutal number. I'm gonna go over and say they win 8 games this year.
I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna say 8.
Yeah, they're gonna win 8 games. As I've said before, I'll say it again. People would be freaking out more about Kyler Murray if Lamar Jackson had been so ridiculous last year. Because Kyler Murray was really good last year, and they're only going to be better this year. DeAndre Hopkins is like the perfect player to add. Talk about teams that had a great first 2 rounds of the draft. They got a stud offensive lineman. They got Isaiah Simmons. I think that they're there. They're a year away from being a Super Bowl contender, but I think that they're pretty squarely in the playoff picture.
Yeah,
playoff competition.
Kyler Murray gets thrown Nuke Hopkins this year, and honestly, how I'm really looking at Kyler Murray is 3-4 years down the road, he is going to be what everybody kind of wants Lamar Jackson to be. And that is a guy with the legs. He's got the legs. He's got the mobility. But he also has one of the sweetest slanging arms in the league. He's just all over the place, just beautiful on a dot whenever he needs it. But he doesn't have to run like Lamar Jackson has to run. So he's not going to take those hits week in and week out that Lamar Jackson takes. So I'm going to go over. I think they're an 8-win football team this year, and I think they're a year, maybe 2 away from being a real legitimate contender, especially in this division where it's just tough. But 8-8 could feasibly be the worst team in this division this year.
You ready for a good Cardinals statistic? I have one. I cherry picked one.
Oh,
Larry Fitzgerald has more tackles than dropped balls in his career.
Yeah, that might be. I saw that a couple weeks ago. That might be the most insane stat ever in
sports. He's going to be their second receiver this year. Christian Kirk is your third receiver. Whew. I mean, they were. I'm excited to see if Larry Fitzgerald can catch 100 balls this year. He'll be more open than he's been in years.
100 feels like a lot.
Rustin has Larry Fitzgerald been more open.
100 feels like a lot to me, but I like your excitement. This might be the Arizona Cardinals might be the only team you get more excited for than the U.S. men's national team. So,
I feel like I've beaten a bunch of people to the punch on this, and I'm just really hoping that I'm right. Do you want to do the NFC North?
Let's do the NFC North.
The NFC North, home of the Detroit Lions. We'll do the Lions last.
Last for sure. Stick around if you want to hear it, nerds.
The Vikings, 9 wins.
Under. There, it's finally the year. I do this every year, right? I always talk myself into how the Vikings aren't that good, and finally this year I have an actual reason. They lost their third best player on offense, and their best player on defense in 2 weeks. They lost Rhodes and they lost Stephon Diggs. And you want to know what the loss of Stephon Diggs is going to do? That's going to expose Kirk Cousins for the average ass Andy Dalton line riding quarterback that he is. Okay, he's average. He's going to have you a couple games each year where he goes for 360 yards and he does really good. But without Stephon Diggs to bail him out, like we saw him do repeatedly through the second half of last season, with just big ball over the top that Cousins just chucked. Didn't even know where it was going to land, just chucked it. That's all out the window. The defense is worse. The offense is worse. And guess what? We had a healthy Dalvin Cook all last year. I'm not going to go into the season confidently saying that we're going to see that again. I think this team wins 7 games at most.
If you were to give me one push to use through all of the over-unders, this is the one I would use. I think 9 wins is about perfect. But I got to pick a side, so I'm going to go with the under. It just feels that team to me feels like all the stories coming out of it are about how shitty that locker room is, and that's a big red flag for me. Football locker rooms are pretty combustible to begin with, I feel like. So I'll take the under, but I don't love it. So I guess that's 2 unders. You're significantly more confident about the under than I am. So
oh yeah, it's the fall off team of the year.
I think it's funny how that Kirk Cousins contract by the end of it is going to not seem like the world's worst deal for the Vikings. That's how fast it moves, right?
Yeah. That's why you should never worry about how much you pay your quarterback.
I agree. Yep, that was a big when Stafford got paid. There were a few you could tell casual football fans from not casual football fans by their reaction to the Stafford contract. I felt like,
yeah, he's now like the 8th highest paid quarterback in the league. So,
and that'll change when Deshaun Watson steps up and when Kyler Murray steps up,
and Dak Prescott, and
so
for sure.
So I'm going to give you the team that has the second highest over under, and it's the Bears at 8.5. And this is an under lock. Say it with me.
Let's do it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Under. And why? Let's say why on 3. Just one word. I want one word of why on 3. 1, 2, 3. Mitch.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't think he's going to play, man. I don't think Trubisky's going to play.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this earlier. Let's say Foles plays. Then they could win 8 games. They could win 8 games with Foles, and that's that defense. That defense has probably gotten even a little bit better from last year. But 8.5, winning 9 games for the Bears. If the Bears win 9 games, you can hold this against me. I will never watch football again. That team is not good enough to win 9 games. I lied. I'll watch football the next week. But, this team is not good enough. 8.5, this is the lock of this century on over-unders. I'm going to put at least $150 on this for people at home. Don't listen to me because I lose a lot, but I'm going to put at least $150 on this.
Yeah, I can't. They have 10 tight ends on their roster, and that's kind of all I feel like I need to say.
That's 20% of their roster.
You think Bill Belichick has ever had 10 tight ends in this roster? You know,
and that's the
and
tight end god. He's the king of tight ends.
They were the first team to draft a tight end too, which is
okay.
Also
what if they just throw out like a 5 receiver set of all guys 6'7" and above? Does it like maybe work?
I think that it could win 15 games in the Eastern Conference.
All right. Well, yeah, Bears under. Bears under.
The Green Bay Packers also have an over-under of 8.5.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
I'm going over. Is that why? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do they have the same over-under as the Bears? Yeah. One team has a quarterback of Aaron Rodgers, perhaps the greatest quarterback I've ever seen in my life. This is the third quarterback I've said about in the show, by the way. And the other team has either Nick Foles, who I'm higher on than most, or Mitch Trubisky, who's the worst quarterback in football. He exaggeratedly said. But I know they got lucky to get to 13 wins last year, but not to get to 9 with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback seems crazy. I don't know if this number has to do with people not betting on them because they saw their stupid-ass draft where they took 2 backups in the first 2 rounds to back up their 2 MVP candidate-level players. Or if this is because the team didn't add any wide receiver help. If you think Devin Funchess is going to come in and all of a sudden be a star for you, you're crazy. But it's Aaron Rodgers. And even in last year, which was like I have to imagine just a migraine for him the entire season, they won 13 games. They're going over. Unless he breaks his back and tears his quad, they're going over.
It seems crazy that barring injury that they don't at least win 9 games to me. That's another one kind of like the Spurs or kind of like the Patriots or Tom Brady where you're going to have to show me they're going to have to lose before I think that they might lose again. I'm just going to keep betting that they're going to win until they lose. So
I agree wholeheartedly.
So last but not least, the Lions have an over-under of 6.5. I'm going over. I'm assuming you're going over too. Yeah, I think we both agree the Lions are a little slept on this year. And that makes sense. You know, I'm not holding that against anybody.
I mean, let's just look at the offense, right? So the number one concern is the offensive line. And that's a reasonable concern. It's not a top-of-the-class offensive line, but it's still at least decent, okay? You got good tackles, you got good interplay, and you got some young guys on the come-up, at least one of which is going to have a little bit of a breakout season. Fingers crossed it's Bo Bushenwells, since I've been the only person talking about him for 380 days. But that's who I think it's going to be. And then you look at the wide receiver core. We're not Dallas. We don't have Gallup, Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb. But we do have Kenny G, who's a top 15 receiver in football, Marvin Jones, who's a top 25 receiver in football. And who am I missing here? Who am I forgetting? Oh, and Danny Amendola, who, guess what? 60 catches again last year.
Serviceable.
Yeah, very good. Then you look at the running back room. You have Kerryon Johnson, who has proven when healthy is a very good running back in the NFL. And if you only give him 12 carries a game or 12 touches a game, guess what? He probably stays healthy. What is he going to be doing for this offense? Like I said, probably about 12 carries a game, and he's going to get targeted 4 to 5 times. He's going to be running a lot of the receiving plays for the running backs out of the backfield. Then you go one step further. You have DeAndre Swift, who's going to be the shifty guy, right? The first and second down back that you're hoping 2 or 3 times during the year can break a 50-plus yard huge run that makes the stadium lose it and completely changes momentum in the game.
Exactly.
And then you look at the quarterback. Guess what, guys? Number 9 is legit. Everybody who's ever played for this team comes out afterwards and says there's almost nobody I would rather play for ever in the history of football. He's a leader. He's up until the last year has been incredibly healthy and durable. He's got the arm of a god. He can fit it in any window from any angle. Number 9 is the guy you want leading a team with offensive talent like this. Now let's look at tight end. TJ Hawkinson came out last year in week 1, had the greatest debut by a rookie tight end ever. Okay, sure, he had a rough couple weeks after that before the first injury, but he was a rookie tight end. You look at Travis Kelce, you look at George Kittle, they were about 400 to 450 receiving yards in their rookie year, and that was when they were completely healthy. TJ Hawkinson missed almost half the season and still put up those numbers. Then you look at Jesse James, who we all know was underutilized last year. Patricia has said it himself. Quinn has said it himself. That is not going to be the case this year. This offense can do a plethora of different things whenever the hell they want to. If you want to dig your fucking feet in the ground and run it up the middle 6 times in a row, this offense can do that. If you want to 1st and 10, launch that ball 80 yards downfield, this offense can do that. If you want to decide, hey, we need a game manager right now, we're going to nickel and dime, we're going to hit Hawk, then we're going to hit Kenny Galladay. Guess what? Your 2 main receivers are 2 of the best tight window ball catchers in the entire league. You can do that too. 6.5 with a healthy Stafford is going to be easy money over.
I co-sign all of that. There's no way that the defense is going to be as bad as they were last year. That would be impossible, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they've added a ton of talent on defense. Like, they've shored up the middle of that defensive line. Sure, they lost Darius Slay, but they replaced him with Trufant and Jeff Okudah, which is, like, probably going to be just as good as Darius Slay. Those 2 combined.
I think better. I think that'll be, those 2 together will be better. The secondary, the top 3 on that secondary is nasty. I mean,
it's kind of strange how comfortable I think we all feel with Okudah. I think we're all just kind of in this thing that he's going to come in next year and he's going to be one of the best corners in football, like right away, which is not something you see. And I'm not talking top 3 or 20 by the end of the year. And that's not something I thought I would ever say about a rookie corner.
I don't think he'll be there until next year, but I think he'll be a really good second corner behind Trufant, who's going to be the number 1 corner. I just think that he's coming into like a very good situation for him. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that are going the right way. But you're right. There's a lot more depth in the defense this year. I agree with you on the offensive line, your assessment of it, and what needs to happen with it. If Big V comes through, if that contract ends up being worth the money, then I think it's going to be a really good offensive line. It's a younger offensive line. It's mobile. If somebody goes down, I think they've got guys who can play different positions. I just think it's a good football team, man. I think it's a good football team. I think it's an 8-win football team at minimum.
And let's not forget, people are sleeping on Taylor Decker. The last 8 games of the season last year, Taylor Decker was phenomenal. I mean, as far as pass blocking, Pro Football Focus, I think, had him like 8th in the league. He was amazing. So this team, the only thing that could possibly stand in its way is Matt Patricia or a Stafford injury. Those are the 2 things on the list.
Yeah, and I mean, Chase Daniels is a perfectly good backup, I think. You could win a few games with Chase Daniels until Stafford
a little overpaid. Back, you know? A little overpaid, whatever. But
I don't mind. I don't mind overpaying. I know that like all football contracts this year are going to be for quarterbacks are going to be like wildly all over the place because you've got on the high end Patrick Mahomes is $450 million and on the low end Cam Newton's veteran minimum or whatever he signed. But I think that like to lock in your backup quarterback with like a really solid guy who people know is good at a certain level, I just think that that's fine. You know, $3 million, fine. Don't worry about it anymore. You know, it's worth it to solve that problem for me.
I agree. I'm happy with Chase Daniel as the backup. Last thing I want for over-unders, it's not even an over-under. I want you to pick your team that comes out of the NFC. I don't want to hear your AFC team until next week, but I want to know what team you have coming out of the NFC and going to the Super Bowl.
Go into the Super Bowl. Can I say the Cardinals?
Nope.
I think it could be the Rams. I like the Rams. It's the NFC is kind of weird, I feel like, because there's no elite team, but there's a bunch of really good teams. I don't really love any of these teams. I'm gonna stick with the Rams, and then I might be interested in Philly depending on how their season goes.
Okay.
If Philly gets Jadeveon Clowney, I mean we gotta do some evaluating because that Eagles team plus Jadeveon Clowney would be. Absurd. In my opinion, certainly a Super Bowl contending team.
You got it. The only thing they would need is to add one more wide receiver to that team. I'm going to go with I'm hopping on the Walker, and I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady, he's bringing them all the way. I know everybody wants to have this pessimistic attitude. That offense is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I want to see a few weeks from them first. I just want to see what it looks like. Tom Brady wasn't that great last year. He really wasn't. And there are a lot of reasons for that. but I want to see like 2 weeks of play from the Buccaneers before I make any assessments on them. They're kind of in the sports media zone where there's no way to get like a unbiased, totally normal take on them right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's too emotional. And I would, for me, the Buccaneers are a stay away team for the first couple of weeks until I know what's going on out there.
I'm very too emotional about them because I'm very excited that I finally get to root for Tom Brady for the first time in my entire life. Because I was born right after he got out of Michigan. I'm a Michigan fan, but I don't care about Tom Brady there. I don't remember it. I get to root for Tom Brady this year, man. That's cool. That's exciting. So I'm going to go with the Bucks. Why not? Why the hell not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any worse than me picking the Rams.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree.
So.
That is our NFC over-unders. Again, if you want to give us a follow on Twitter, it's at Fan2Fan Detroit. That's the number 2. We will be doing AFC next week, so make sure you come tune in for that. You can also find Parker specifically on Twitter at Parker_Hammond. Cool.
You know what? I've let this go on for too many weeks. It's Parker.Hammond.
No, it's not.
What?
No, it's not.
It is? It's Parker_Hammond. Are you sure? Oh, fuck.
All right. I know you're on Twitter better than you. I don't even know.
The MLS is back.
FC Dallas is not participating.
Yeah, they got, because they've had a bunch of,
they're
which
like
sucks
30.
They're like the most, like the team with the most interesting American players on it, generally speaking, which sucks. Because it means a couple of those guys have statistically tested positive for coronavirus, which if Paxton Pomykal gets coronavirus, I will drive down to Texas and have a very serious conversation with somebody.
Well, at least he'd have something to overcome in his career. It'll make him stronger in the long run.
Have you seen his mustache? What his mustache looks like now? It is approaching news anchor level mustache. I mean, it's a really good mustache.
I'm gonna have to see it, especially on babyface Paxton Pomykal.
Yeah, right. He looks like he's 12 too. Like he has like classic like blonde skater hair practically when it's long.
Oh man, who else plays for FC Dallas that's like important or set close?
Reggie Cannon. Their goalie Jonathan Gonzalez was like in contention, or Jesse Gonzalez was in contention to be like a third goalie or like a backup national team goalie, and I guess beat the crap out of his wife, so he's off. There's like an 18-year-old striker Ricardo Pepi who's kind of coming through, looking good. Who else? Who else is on that team? Jesus Ferreira, who is going to probably compete with Josh Sargent for a lot of minutes at the national team level. He's like a dual national who just signed his like citizenship papers from Venezuela or something like that. So he's a really good prospect. He's really good. He played the national team like in a full game.
So what's the deal with these guys? No, they're getting 20, 21, 22. Is it just they want to play in the MLS, so they're going to stay in the MLS, or are they just not good enough to go European or otherwise?
I think that both Paxton Pomykal and Reggie Cannon, I think, were due to ship out in like literally the transfer period that's been interrupted by COVID. We don't know how that's going to affect transfers. I would say so far it really hasn't, especially not for teams like Chelsea has spent a whole bunch of money. There are a couple of teams that are planning on doing the same. So it'll happen within a year or two. They'll have to sell because they have so many more academy kids coming through that are super talented too. Brandon Servania, who's like a attacking midfielder, like a 10, played with that U20 World Cup team. He's probably like an MLS starter level player potential wise, but could always be more. Tanner Tessman, that kid who they stole from Clemson, that kid who's going to go play football at Clemson, he's like a destroyer. Like he ruins people as a defensive midfielder. He wins like the duels. Like you get into the cage or the octagon with him and he whoops your ass. So that guy too, I'm super excited to see what Tessman's going to be.
Who's the guy who's still playing over here that is going to surprise people? And not just surprise people by being good, but surprise people by being like really damn good, starting in Europe, that could really make that late or take that late jump that we see. Like a lot of European countries have one or two of those guys who they're 22, 23 years old, and they go from a mid-tier player to a really damn good player. Who's that guy right now?
Who's playing in the MLS right now?
Yeah.
It could be actually. How about this? He's not even playing in the MLS. It could be Jose Gallegos, who plays for Louisville City FC in the USL.
How old is he?
I think he's 17, 18. He was playing high school ball. He like kind of skipped a few steps. He's had kind of a really weird career arc in that he literally was playing varsity high school ball 3 months ago. Didn't play anything in the DA, which is unusual. That's usually the step you take before you join like a MLS academy, is you play in the DA league. That's way in the weeds, but he could turn 20 and all of a sudden be the best player in MLS. He's kind of been on like a weird track like that. Some of those Sounders kids, Kobe Hernandez Foster, or who's that striker? Or they have a midfielder, Danny Leyva, who's like 16, 17. There's a lot of kids coming through. I'm a big fan of David Ochoa, who's going to be the goalie for he's the goalie right now for Monarchs, which is the academy team for Utah. What team's like near Utah? I can't remember. My brain hurts. Real Salt Lake. Sorry, got there. Was going to potentially be the starter this year and then kind of lost the starting role. But he's also super young, super good. There's a bunch of kids in Germany who are starting to break through too, like the third tier prospects. So now it's just a waiting game. Now we just got to kind of wait and see how many of these kids end up being Weston McKennie and how many of them end up being like Ben Letterman. So
right. Well, that's the trick, right? Because I feel like growing up, it was always, we have three guys that you hope is going to be like what a now modern day is a Weston McKennie level player. But the trick is to have 20 of those guys. So 17 of them don't work out, but 3 do.
It's a lot like, I feel like it's a lot like the NFL draft, where you've got your first round guys and your second round guys, and you're expected to hit on those. And you've got your third, fourth, and fifth round guys where you're hoping to get a couple out of that. And then maybe you get an undrafted guy or a 6th or 7th round guy who also works out for you, you know? And sometimes every once in a while you get Tom Brady. I don't think we have a Tom Brady, but I think that there's a lot of good kids coming through. So we'll see.
Well, and it sounds like from what I've been reading lately is that a lot of them who are in Europe right now look like they're going to be on the move. Like Weston McKennie turned in a transfer request at Schalke, correct?
Yep. That's a pretty logical one. Schalke's in some financial trouble. They kind of have a owner who's had some problems with some racism type stuff, racism adjacent stuff for sure. And Weston McKennie, if you go through his Twitter page, is not the kind of player who's going to sit there while that happens. He's very involved. You know, he's very socially minded, super smart kid. I love him. But he has awesome. a lot of interest from a lot of places too. He's give
me your top 3.
Well, he's been linked really heavily with Everton, and I really like that. He won't be a starter day one. He'll have to work his way in. But that's good. That's what you want. Everton has a history of doing well with American players. Tim Howard, Landon Donovan was there for a little while. And it's just the team. They have a really good coach, Carlo Ancelotti. He'll get high-level coaching. He'll play. He fits well in the system. They run like a 4 kind of 4 midfield. And they have Gylfi Sigurdsson right now, who doesn't really work for that because you need to cover like a bunch of ground. Hertha Berlin wasn't the other Bundesliga team looking at him. It would be a lot of money for a team like that to purchase him, but he'd probably slot in as a day one starter there, or at least as like the first guy off the bench right away. So those are 2 places I really like. There's some Liverpool interest. It seems like you can never really know for sure how much of that's real and how much of that isn't, but I don't love it.
I want to get stuck behind a bunch of people at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Everton, to me, that seems like, to me, Everton has, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they've always come across as like the blue collar team of the English Premier League, like the pull yourself up by the bootstraps team. And that is like the type of player that Weston McKennie is. So from outsider's perspective, if you will, that seems like the perfect fit to me. He's already wearing blue. Just keep him in blue. I think anywhere Weston McKennie goes, fans will love him just because of what he does. You know, works super hard, makes nasty plays. Yeah, leaves it all on the field. You know, that's the kind of stuff you can go anywhere and succeed with fans as long as you're doing that, no matter how bad you are.
Really.
Any other of the big name United States men's national team guys looking like they could be on the move?
I don't know how big of a name Anthony Robinson is, but he's certainly going somewhere.
He's at Wigan right now?
He's at Wigan Athletic, yeah, who is another team that I think is having financial problems, I think, maybe. But a team that definitely stands to sell. He's been linked with AC Milan. They finished a deal with AC Milan, and then he had like a heart thing, and he had to go have like a heart surgery for it, and so it didn't go through in time because he failed his physical. But that's fixed, and I think he could go back to AC Milan as like a backup, kind of a left back in waiting. It'd be a cool role. Or the other one I saw was I think West Brom, who just got promoted into the Premier League. That would be cool too. He'd slot in there. I don't know if I feel like he's quite there yet as like a Premier League starting left back. But I mean, they don't have any better options, that's for sure. And if they can get him for 10 million, I would think that a club like West Brom, who's probably hunting for bargains to fill up their roster going into the Premier League, would be, if in 2 years he looks a lot better, I think that would look like a good purchase. So there's that one. I thought there was a few more. It seems like Josie Altidore might move on from Toronto FC at some point. Wants to go back to the Netherlands and score a bunch of goals, which is cool. I mean, I get that, right? You just want to get into form. Josh Sargent avoided relegation today. We were recording this on what's today? Like late Monday night. It's his Fan2Fan after dark.
One of those days in the week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They all blend together. But Josh Sargent played like 89 minutes today in their win or their tie, which won because it was away goals. But I like where he's at. He's such a weird player right now. I don't know it's tough to watch him and really.
He's up and down and up and down. And
the team is bad, and Rashika is like just such a bog. And I just don't know. He's
a kid, man. Remember, he is literally almost still a child. So he's got time.
I think he's still 20, maybe he's 21. So
yeah,
Pulisic's been all over the place.
Well, that's what I want to talk about next, right? The golden boy, the soaring eagle, the king of American soccer. Has his ceiling? I like the American Eagle the most personally.
I've been holding on to that one for a little while.
Yes. Yeah, that's back from like episode 2. The amazing part is I think we all came into the last year with like Pulisic's ceiling is about as high as anybody besides maybe like the top 10 or 15 prospects in the world. And from what I've seen, it seems as though he's slotted himself right in that conversation, as high of a ceiling as almost anybody on the entire planet. He had showed up at Chelsea. Just 2 weeks ago, he eliminated Man City from winning the Premier League. I know they were like 20 points back and they weren't going to win anyways, but it was pretty cool to see an American go knock out Manchester City from having any hope, and then followed it up with maybe an even better performance. He didn't have the stats he had in the first game, but man, he was active. He was everywhere. He drew a penalty and then a free kick right outside of the box, correct?
Against whom? Against Watford or West Ham? Yeah. He's drawing a bunch of penalties, 2 or 3 penalties. He actually had one where he was fouled but did not get the call too. I mean, he's been in their last 4 goals. He's either scored, assisted, or drawn the penalty for 3 of them. Willian owes him a nice steak dinner, that's for sure.
Well, who was that against when he drew that penalty for Willian? Watford?
Watford, and he did it again against West Ham. He did it against
Watford. Well, the one against Watford is ridiculous because he's running straight at the defender. He's like 15 yards out, and then all of a sudden he just flicks the ball to the right just a little bit with his foot, cuts as quick as I've ever seen anybody cut in my whole life. And it's not even the defender's fault. He's just stuck there. He's stuck in the way of where Pulisic should have gone. Any other human being pretty much on the planet goes where that defender was defending. But the ball is like 4 yards to the right of him, and he just trips him. And then, like you said, Willian owes him a steak dinner because he got a nice little penalty out of it. But what if you could I either want a player comparison or just a deep description, what is the absolute ceiling for Christian Pulisic right now? Putting you on the spot.
Well, it's it's what the fans have kind of been noticing over the last week, and it's Eden Hazard. There have been a lot of Eden Hazard comparisons in that this last kind of 2-week stretch, it's looked a lot like all of their offensive production has kind of been coming from that one winger, and it's been him, I think that they are kind of similar in play styles in that they're like super quick wings and they're just dynamic on the ball and they really excel beating defenders. But I think that's kind of it's not a super lazy comp, but it is maybe like a tiny bit easy.
Well, that's my next question,
like
right? If he was playing in Dortmund, would Eden Hazard would that be the comparison still? If he was still in Dortmund, would that be the comparison, or is it because he got to Chelsea?
I think it'd be something pretty close to that. It's tough because he hasn't always put the ball in the net, and he's been doing that more at. Hang on, there is like the weirdest noise. It is distracting me. Do you hear that?
It's a little woo 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 woo.
Yeah.
Woo. What is it?
I can hear that through my shut window.
Is it a car alarm?
I think it's a house alarm.
So, if he was in Dortmund, would the comparison still be Hazard, or would it be somebody completely different? I know the play style is like similar, but I feel like it gets a little extra buff because he's in Chelsea.
I think it's a pretty close comparison. I guess I can't think of like a winger. I guess he kind of almost at times looks like Mo Salah, maybe, just in the way that he uses his change of speed to just destroy defenders' lives. But I don't want to put that on him. Mo Salah is like the best winger in the world right now. But he's.
Yeah, it's not like you put Hazard. Let
me try this. Maybe Lorenzo Insigne from Napoli. I might go there because he's kind of a slightly smaller, quicker, uses the ball, creative playmaker type winger.
Now Insigne doesn't have like as good of straight line speed, correct?
I would not be able to confidently say. I would fear Napoli fans yelling at me. I think Pulisic's really fast. So yeah, actually, I'll just say yeah. I'll say Pulisic's probably faster in the open field.
You know what gets me the most excited about the future of the U.S. men's national team? It's that I typically think of you as a pessimistic sports fan, and you are so optimistic about the United States.
Dude. It's like delirium.
And it's been this way. We're going on 3 years now of just like through the roof optimism, just believing. And I don't want to wait till 2028 to find out, but I feel like that's when we'll really know, is 2028.
So the World Cup's 2022. We'll have a good idea of like how much of this is working out in the 2022 World Cup.
Or 2026. We'll Wait, is it coming to America in 2026?
Yes, and I think that there's a chance that we do really well there. We got to figure out what we're going to do with Gio Reyna. I think that's kind of become the most important thing is where does he slot? Is he a 10? Is he a right winger? Because I think Pulisic's best position is left wing. It seems like that's where he plays.
So if we run a 10, if we who's out of the lineup?
Sebastian Lletget probably is the guy who's out of the lineup. I think it comes down to the question of would you prefer Jordan Morris on the bench or Sebastian Lletget on the bench? And for my money, Jordan Morris has looked like a much better player for the national team as well. It looked like before the season got shut down, like he had really leveled up for real and was going to score a shitload of goals in the MLS. He still might, because the MLS is back. Tournament is happening soon. Maybe not though.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Isn't that just kind of how you feel about everything? We were going to talk about this in depth later, but I almost feel like we should just do it now, get it out of the way. But like, I'm feeling like this about everything, about all the sports. Major League Baseball had 35 positive tests, and they couldn't get their test results back from Friday until today, like midday today, which is not going to work. You can't have 3 days in between testing if you're going to be playing these sports professionally with these many guys and these many staff members in those close quarters that a locker room is. And it's not a high school locker room, but it's still, not a it's not a mansion that you're going and getting changed and taking a
Sure,
shower in.
There's a lot of baseball players.
Yeah, the NHL, 35 positive tests. The NBA, 25 positive tests. And this isn't just players. This is staff, players, traveling members of the team, whatever. But that's a lot, man. That's like over 1% for most of these sports. And we're still almost a full month away from most of them starting. The concern for me is like getting every day. It's like anxiety. It's just getting worse and worse because I think 3 weeks ago, you asked me, I would have said 85% sure we get basketball and baseball once they sign the deal, and football. Last week, you would have asked me, I would have said 70% sure. And this week, if you ask me, I'm down to like 55% sure. The confidence is waning completely. But I need it. I need the sports.
I think that baseball it's weird that they like did this ridiculous labor negotiation, and it was super divisive and really not nice and just not good spirited. And then now that it's all done, they're kind of reflecting like, should we have even done this? And to me, it's a little late for that, baseball. Ethical questions probably at the beginning, not the end.
Yes, 100%. That's all I got for that. I don't know how to talk more about that.
I think that we're seeing it too. I think that I don't know if basketball is going to finish. I think it'll start, and I think that we might reach the playoffs. But I worry about it finishing. We're going to do football stuff, and I don't think football is going to happen. Not in any meaningful way. We might get 3 football games. I mean, seriously, how many football games do you think we're going to get this year?
Yeah, I mean, what? We're 8 weeks away from kickoff. Florida hit 11,000 cases a day today. Michigan, which has been the state, one of only 2 states in the country that 2 weeks ago was on track to contain the virus, is coming up on 1,000 cases a day. It's getting ugly again. And I don't know if we have 8 weeks before. I mean, professional sports has got to be one of the first things to go, because it's especially football. There's going to be, and we've said this on the show many times, there's going to be 140 people on the field at any time between the 53-man rosters, the coaches and the media, and the referees, like probably closer to 200. Football seems impossible, but I think the hope for football is that it is the most greedy of all the sports. The owners are by far the most greedy. And those owners, if they have it their way, they'll say, I don't care about COVID, go play.
I think there'll just be an uncanny valley where they won't be able to ignore it any longer.
And then, like, that's the reason why baseball could possibly sneak out of this and get a full season and postseason, is because baseball is not a contact sport. In basketball, we saw it. Rudy Gobert had it, and you could trace it to 3 separate teams over 3 days where a guy got coronavirus that you could trace back to Rudy Gobert. Christian Wood being one of them. So basketball feels like if you get a team that gets 3 guys infected and they don't know it by the time they play their next game, then that ruined, like, the whole season's done, because then you're going to be a day behind for everybody. And what do you do if you're in the Western Conference Finals and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both get COVID? What do you do then?
What do you do if LeBron gets it? I mean, that's like a whole.
That's why the reason they're playing is so LeBron. The reason they're playing is so LeBron can potentially get another ring. That is like the main reason why the NBA is playing.
Zion can get into the playoffs.
Yes, of course, with that sorry ass schedule they gave the Pelicans.
They're like the U.S. military. They just want the oil. The NBA doesn't want peace. It just wants LeBron James to play the playoffs.
Thank you for tuning into the Chaos edition of Fan2Fan Detroit After Dark, quickly following last week's handsome edition of Fan2Fan. If you didn't see that, go check it out. But for real, we really appreciate you guys listening. If you're listening at home, that's going to do it for this week. Again, that's Parker Hammond, at Parker_Hammond on Twitter. I'm Andrew Norris. You can find me at Fan2Fan Detroit. Hopefully this will be up in podcast form. So if you're listening to us in your earbuds or in your car, or if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, we appreciate you guys, and we will see you next week.